It's updated when I downloaded it.
January 2004.
But these three options, 1, 2, and 3, under section 10A9, these are options that I've heard discussed in our prior meetings. I'm just not clear as to whether or not we had to give the in-town option. Could we not have gone with either, as we discussed before, 28 to 128 or 93 to 128, which would seem to be a better solution for our community as a whole? And I guess you said consultants. Are you talking with DOT? Are you speaking with
We
traffic
spoke to
consultants?
2 different consultants, and Mike, the town engineer, spoke to, I think, the traffic engineering division at District 4. So we talked to 3 people with the same answer. I'd say you can't do it, but it's pretty monumental because as part of the application, just for the 1.6 mile traffic exclusion request for Park to Endicott, that's something like a 50-page document right now. You have to literally describe in detail everything along that road. Building, land use, predominant road conditions, things like that. It's quite extensive. So I can do it. I don't think it's got a chance of survival based on what I've been told by consultants, and it'll take quite a lot of time to do it.
Mr. Ford?
I actually spoke to someone at Mass DOT today, and he's actually the chief engineer in charge of overseeing the truck exclusion applications. He hasn't heard from anybody from what's writing said as of yet, but that doesn't mean he hasn't spoken to anybody. But based on what I talked to him today, was he thinks he'd be surprised if this passed anyway, because they're not going to make the turns.
Correct.
But we think going to make the turns. So
Right, I think everybody
they actually
acknowledges.
going to come out. They're going to come out and look at it once the application's submitted. And again, he's familiar with the area. He's not so sure that it's going to meet criteria. Once they make a determination, just in District 4, they send a recommendation to the Boston office, and the Boston office does the whole process all over again, and they can squash it too. So I'd be surprised if what we're submitting to them right now, what we're proposing to submit to them right now, even passes the first stage.
I agree.
Mr. Messere?
I can't really speak for the entire board. My sense of what was going on was we had a situation that none of us felt good about the alternate truck exclusion. The goal was, and why we had gone down the path of trying to reduce the traffic flow on there with speed bumps or raised crosswalks and islands, was to kind of discourage a number of trucks to make it hard enough so that they would find some other route. Then we had the neighbors on Chestnut Street come to us and say, we don't want that. And that seemed to be not the same group. They preferred this group preferred the traffic exclusion, the other group preferred the calming. So I think we were forced into making a decision. I think we all hoped to get turned down. And then we go back to the people on Chestnut Street and say, okay, we only have one way of dealing with this issue. We don't have a lot of alternatives.
Mr. Ford?
I don't know if I thought it wasn't going to pass. I mean, I think it was kind of one of those ones where you hold your nose and vote for it because you think you're trying to do you're trying to help if you can. And unfortunately, I don't think maybe in my case, I'm not going to speak for everybody else. I didn't take the big picture into account. So I'm not so sure had I researched it as much as I should have that I would have voted the same way I did. That being said, we're not going to make everybody happy. But at this point, I said at the last meeting, I think we need to hire a traffic consultant. I'm not a traffic engineer. No one on this board is. I don't think anybody who is employed by the town is. I think you need to hire a traffic engineer who knows exactly what we're doing. We're all debating here what can and can't be done. And all due respect to Dick and his staff, I think they're doing everything they can with what they have. But I think you need to hire someone who does this on a regular basis and let them bring before us a resolution that we don't have to, to look at it and decide if that's the way we want to go with it. But I think it's well worth this the amount of money that's gonna cost to do this. I would go so far as to make a motion to reconsider our vote.
I'll second for the purposes of discussion. Your suggestion of hiring a traffic engineer to look at what and where? Are we gonna look at just the Chestnut New Street area and then see what they come up with as far as an alternative route?
To look at the whole, to
Well, I
look
mean,
at the issue.
my guess is they would have to come up with a suggestion for an
Correct.
alternative route within the DOT guidelines
Correct.
to offer us
Correct.
suggestions as to what can or
Correct.
may be available to us.
Right, I mean, one of the things is, I know one of the discussions was, prior to me coming, was the traffic calming. And based on the last meeting we had, I don't think traffic calming was the issue. I think the issue was trucks going up and down this portion of Chestnut Street. So I don't think traffic calming is gonna resolve the issue at all. I don't think speed bumps or any of that's gonna resolve the issue.
Well, just to, again, rehash what occurred, was the residents, originally the board was talking about truck exclusion. That's all we
Right.
were talking about. And then a number of the residents got together and said, we really don't want to push our problem somewhere else, so let's look at some other alternatives, which, as a result of that effort, came about the traffic calming issues. That was never initially on the table, and that just took on a life of its own. We moved ahead with what we thought was a consensus of the area neighborhood and came up with a plan. And once the plan was publicized a little bit more, after several public meetings and plenty of discussion, open discussion, and again, accepting the fact that some people don't necessarily pay as close attention as you would expect them to, all of a sudden, the neighborhood network grew a little bit, and those people who were going to be directly impacted came forward and said, time out, that's not necessarily what we're looking for. It's not speed we're talking about, it's the trucks, it's the trucks, it's the trucks. So we were back to square one. We said, fine, let's do things simultaneously, and then here we are today. Because as a result of our previous discussion and action, another neighborhood has stepped forward and said, time out, let's take another look at this. What do we anticipate the cost of the traffic study to be? Again, the last one was,
I don't know what I'm trying to do now. I was asked to look for consultants for traffic calming. You want to go back to something else?
No,
I'll define it. If you get a price, you give me what you want.
well, I'll defer to Mr. Fode as far as specifically what we would be looking for in an RFP from a traffic study standpoint.
Well, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think a traffic study was done originally, it was just traffic counts.
And an analysis of traffic counts.
With an
Right, so there was no suggestion from the consultant as to what we should do to try and resolve this issue.
No, because specifically I was asked by the Board of Selectmen to do a traffic study relative to a truck exclusion. So
that was-
I-
yeah,
the
that was
consultant was
determined-
not directed to do something that he wasn't asked to
Right,
do.
it was
No, I-
determined initially whether or not we were going to have, whether it met warrants or it didn't, because previous studies showed that it didn't. Previous police chief informed this board several years ago that it didn't meet warrants. And so what we asked them to get was,
No,
yeah.
I
just
understand that, and
yeah.
I'm not saying it was done.
Just the problem is, it keeps being a moving target. So we're trying to give you what you want, but the target keeps jumping around, unfortunately.
Right, and, it's based on a bunch of different
Right.
reasons, and I'm not, Dick, in all fairness, I'm not saying it was done, I know what was asked for previously, it was more just traffic counts, but maybe it's, I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, but I thought maybe it may make sense to bring someone in who's a traffic engineer, who knows this stuff better than we do, and I don't know how well you understand all this stuff.
A lot better now than I did a year ago.
Mr. Prisco?
I don't think I would be actually in favor of reconsidering any vote at this point, because what happened, what transpired at the last meeting, I think they were kind of all happened because there is a lot of confusion. And I think, you standing up there and saying you're confused, it even makes me more concerned. It makes me even support more of the idea that, we need to just stop, because we can't have this subject on our agenda every meeting. And that at this point, we have to just all admit that nobody in this room is a professional in this area, and that we are all grasping at straws. And I don't want to have another vote. I don't even want to have this on the agenda anymore. I think Mr. Fode is right. Let's just put the money and invest in a correct solution, rather than us guess. But I'm not, we don't have to reconsider a vote to do that.
So you do.
We don't.
You should
Yeah,
do.
we've already
You
taken
should-
action.
You should do.
Yeah, okay, we can still go ahead and do a traffic exclusion, or submit for a truck exclusion after we have an engineer come in and do a study.
I know,
what-
but our
We
previous
didn't put a
vote.
deadline on it.
No, but our previous vote was specific as to what the alternative route was going to be.
I understand.
We could take a vote to
So
put it
if we
off.
vote to reconsider that,
We don't
and
have to.
then
right now.
change it.
Right.
Let's do the study first, before we reconsider anything.
I think you had.
If we undo what we did, with the caveat that we're going to vote now to hire a traffic engineer, to do an appropriate study, so that we can present a viable alternative under DOT regulations, and see what our options are, that takes care of it. But we kind of have to do what we did. We have to undo what we did. Because what's on the books right now, what the administration's been instructed to do, and they're ready to submit, is what we asked them to do.
Okay.
What was given to us in our packet tonight, and is ready to submit tomorrow, is what we asked them to do. And if the majority of the board says, you know what, let's put the brakes on and undo what we did, look a little further, hire a traffic engineer, and see what the viable alternatives are, then let's do that. Rescind what we did, reconsider what we did.
That's fine.
And then move forward.
But we have.
And then
we
don't
can't
submit
keep
anything
on.
until we get the appropriate information from the professional traffic engineer.
Do you want to follow up?
I do, just one quick thing, because, I think to the outside, it really does look like we have not given everybody, including people on Chestnut, on Haverhill Street, even Park Street, the consideration related to this vote. And, we try to do the best we can. We've been dealing with this subject since I've been on the board when we approved it at town meeting in October of 2010. So, anybody that felt excluded or feel like their concerns fell on deaf ears, I find kind of insulting at this point. We have been on this subject more than anything we've been on before in my 2 years here. And at this point, I just want to make the right investment and get the right people to make decisions. And if we have to reconsider it, then fine, then let's reconsider the vote. But let's do it tonight and move on.
I'll get to you in a minute. Mr. Messeri?
We're talking about doing a traffic study. We don't know how much that traffic study is gonna cost at this point, or the scope of what, I think we have an idea of what the scope is, but, we don't have money in a budget allocated to do that at this point. If we're gonna spend that money, we're gonna have to wait till October town meeting to get approval to spend the money, unless there's some surplus funds sitting around somewhere that I'm unaware of. In the meantime, there's no harm done submitting the traffic study, I don't think.
It means submit the
I'm
application.
sorry. Excuse me. Submitting the application.
Two things. I believe at one point in time, we allocated the sum of about $25,000, earmarked it for purchasing and installation of traffic calming devices and so forth. So there is, should be some money there.
I have an
Mr. Cannavale?
We received preliminary feedback from Mass Highway. They don't feel speed tables or speed bumps are an appropriate use on a road like Chestnut Street.
No.
So the money is there, Mass Highway funding, but they don't think it's an appropriate use of the money for that purpose.
Maybe I didn't make myself clear. That $25,000, instead of using it for that purpose, is there any reason why we could not use that for hiring a traffic engineer?
The process is we ask Mass Highway for permission to use that money for that purpose.
So that-
They probably would, but I can't say for sure.
So that's a possibility. So there possibly a pool of money there that can be used for that particular purpose.
Correct.
Okay, that's one. The second issue, I guess, I don't see why we would go forward with a truck exclusion. It seems like the consensus of the board is probably not the right place to push this truck traffic down to 62 on Haverhill Street. So I wouldn't be inclined to do that. If there's a way in which we can give an alternative that is either 28 to 128